What am I to do?
Welcome to Razor Branding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. Y'all, today's the day. It's National Podcast Day. So what are we doing to celebrate? A podcast marathon. All day long till midnight tonight. Each hour we are interviewing a different nonprofit, talking about what they do, how they help the community, the kind of work that they do, the money that they raise, and maybe some events that have had to be rescheduled or didn't happen at all that usually are their main funding mechanisms. And so today we're hat in hand asking you to help support their cause, give to their pages, ask them questions in the Facebook feed if you want to know what they're about and what they're doing, or if you have a specific question, we're open for it. We're going to be talking this hour to Faith House and Nicole Cockrum, and she's going to be talking all about what Faith House does and how they help. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us today.
Thanks for being here. So I'll give you an easy softball to start. Talk to me about Faith House. Who are you? What do you do? How do you help?
Faith House was opened up in 1981, predominantly as a women's homeless shelter as the oil industry fell out around that time. Faith House was established, and it just kind of evolved into a domestic violence shelter. And what we do here at the Faith House is we provide shelter, empowerment, resources, and advocacy to survivors of domestic violence.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit before the show backstage. I know that this year is going to probably be the worst you've had on record because of the quarantine and people having to shelter in place. I've read a lot of articles about the statistics, and they are alarming about the uptick in domestic violence as a result of being the stressor of a pandemic, job loss, and then being in such close quarters with each other that can get on anybody's nerves. But in a domestic violence situation, it's exacerbated.
Absolutely. And I can't state this enough. 2020 has been the year that has completely changed the face of domestic violence, not only nationwide, worldwide, but here in our community. The uptick has been insane. We are full, and we're having to, here in the shelter, and we're having to find alternative safe housing. And we're going to be addressing that in the coming months because we obviously have outgrown our facility. And that's a sad fact to say here in our own community that we've outgrown it, but we have, and we need to address that here in the coming months.
What you think about it, y'all were started in the 80s. Our population has grown significantly in the past 40 years. And so it's understandable that your capacity would get stretched too thin and we would now have expanded it. So anybody who's watching, please go to the comments and you'll see the links to the Faith House website, their Facebook page, and to the Mighty Cause link where you can go and donate to help this noble cause and help the good work that they do. So walk me through the process. I mean, when I think about domestic violence, it really does touch all walks of life, right?
There is, it excludes no one. And it's a well-kept secret amongst everyone, basically. No one wants to admit that they're in a domestic violence relationship. And of course, no relationship starts off that way. But there's subtleties that happen. And before you know it, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum and you're in a full-blown domestic violence type of situation. And I am a survivor as well. And I was having a talk with my best friend actually the other day, and she asked me why I never felt like I could tell her. And of course, everyone's situation is unique. You have to be ready in your own time, and you have to actually admit to yourself that you're in a domestic violence relationship. And that is a very hard truth to come to. No woman wants to think, and this doesn't especially extend to just women, it's men, the children are affected, but no one wants to think that they're in a domestic violence relationship. And so We're here to help people. You have to admit it. You have to make the call for help. You have to reach out. But we're here to help you navigate that process. We have advocates. We have a wonderful team, and actually, I can give you a little kind of overview of Faith
Please.
House because a lot of people don't know what we encompass and the parishes and where we serve. But we serve Lafayette, Vermilion, St. Landry, Evangeline, Avoyelles, Acadia, and Rapides Parish. We have either offices, mobile advocates, that service all of these areas, all of Acadiana. And we also have the shelter here where I work personally. And then also too, with the addition of the Family Justice was opened just a few years ago. This is a really great tool for anyone who has experienced domestic violence. Say you are a woman with 4 kids who has gone through a very violent situation. You need help. You can go to the Family Justice Center. The Family Justice Center is located downtown, right next to the courthouse. Under that one roof, you have, and the purpose of the Justice Center, let me backtrack just a second, is to expedite the response to domestic violence. So you've got your 4 kids, you're needing to find help. You can go to this one spot and you have law enforcement, prosecutors, legal services, advocates, all under one roof. You go to one place and they can get everything done there. And if they need to refer you to the shelter, they do. But this is a wonderful entity of Faith House that was opened up just a few years ago, and I can't recommend it enough.
That is amazing. And so, if someone is suffering from domestic violence and abuse, is that their first step to go to that place? Is it to call y'all? Is it to go to the website? Is it all of the above? Where do they turn?
First step is to call our crisis line. And that is behind me here, but it's 888-411-1333.
Yeah,
That's
because the
your first
very
step.
bottom of that is cut off. So we
The
put it on the
very, yeah.
screen and it's in the comment box as well. So people can see that and save it on their phones and bookmark it if they need to. So they call the line and what are they going to be asked and what are they going to be told to do?
They are going to be referred to an advocate who is going to do an evaluation on them at that point to determine what the level of violence is in the home. And then they make determinations upon that. They don't necessarily need, if they're not willing to stay in the shelter, certainly they don't have to, but they have the option, if the situation calls for it, we will take them in. And we provide meals, the shelter, everything that they need. A lot of people are just escaping a very horrible situation and they need a place immediately. They cannot go back.
Right.
So that's and they have everything under this roof that they need to be able to be safe, secure, the kids, because a lot of people don't even, when you think of domestic violence, the littlest ones are forgotten about a lot. And we always say break the cycle because it's important to do that. These kids witness domestic violence on a large scale, and a lot of them grow up and they're either inflicting domestic violence on their partner, thinking that's normal, or engage in a relationship where domestic violence is taking place, and that's okay because that's the way that they grew up. And that's a sad fact. And so we're always, that's one of our mantras here is break the cycle.
Right. I mean, I think to the murder-suicide that happened in Broussard a couple of weeks ago, or I guess a month and a half ago now, and the kids who were in the house when they saw their dad, shoot their mom and then shoot himself. And I can only imagine the trauma that inflicts upon them. And, if you look at some of the court records that came out in the press after, this had been an ongoing series of things, and there had been documents filed, and there was a restraining order in place and all this other stuff. And so you're like, how does it get to that point? And I guess, is it just people don't realize that Faith House is here to help them? What keeps them in?
A lot of people, I think, in my experience thus far, they don't want to admit that they're in that level of danger. And sometimes the level of danger escalates very quickly. You can go from zero to a physical abuse in no time. So I think a lot of people deal with that. And somebody, especially with the economy and the quarantine and everything else that we're dealing with right now, I don't know. My most solid people that I know of are everyone is a little bit off right now. I don't know anyone who is completely thriving and happy. Everybody's feeling that heaviness that's going on in the world right now, and that has a lot to do with it as well. But certainly the unemployment rate, and several factors, they just kind of come into play.
Well, I think it's all of it. I mean, you've got global pandemic, you've got dramatic drop in oil prices, you've got layoffs and furloughs and reduced hours. You add to that social unrest and all of the frustration that we're seeing coming out about social justice issues. You throw a hurricane in the mix, and although we're far, far away, seeing the West Coast wildfires on the news every day, it does sort of make it feel like the world is coming to an end. So, and then you add a presidential election. So all of that combined, yeah, I would say we're under a lot of stress. So
Yes.
what do people do? They go on social media, and then they take their stress out there. They receive stress from other people. So everywhere you turn, it just feels like negative energy. And so I can see how that becomes the kindling in a very dark situation that may have already been existing before this year, and it just gets cranked up.
Absolutely. And this is a wonderful time that we're having this podcast, because tomorrow starts Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And never has it been a time where it's been more important. We, as we rely on the community for funding to keep this place going, we are overloaded and having to find safe alternative housing. And our donations are down, and we're trying to find alternative ways to fundraise. And so, we always have different events that are going on. And of course, this year it looks a little bit different because of COVID. Our hands are tied. We haven't been able to fundraise like we normally would. But we do have a few events going on that I'd like to kind of put out there.
Bring it on. Tell us.
So what we're doing, first of all, next Tuesday, we will be going to the council meeting, Lafayette City Parish Council, to sign a proclamation declaring it will be Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And that'll be recognized by the parish. And then on the 21st of October, we will be having a virtual candlelight vigil to honor the victims who died as a result in Louisiana from domestic violence. And we're going to be putting out information on the website. We'll be putting out information on our Facebook page. Please like and follow our Facebook page. We put out a lot of information. We also put out a lot of messaging for people who may not necessarily know that they're going through a domestic violence situation. Good tools, good information. We also work very closely with a group called Voices of Acadiana. I love this group of women. They are a group of women who are all going through the Faith House system, and they use their voices, that's what it's called, voices, to speak out against domestic violence. And I love their stories. Their stories are so empowering, and it resonates. You may think that you're going through a domestic violence situation, and then you start reading these stories, and there's parallels, and then you of course have to come to that realization that you are in that type of situation and need to get out. But back to the goings on we have. We're doing a online fundraising throughout the month of October through Facebook and our website. We need the help of the community right now. Our donations, like I said, are down. We need to get some operational funding to handle the load that we've got right now. We also have a mask fundraiser that's upcoming, and these are the COVID masks, but they were designed by um, women in our shelter, women and children. They're designs of some women and children that were in our shelter. We're getting those out. I will be putting information out on our Facebook page about that whenever those are available. They're being done right now, actually, and we have some retailers that are lined up that will be that happily accepted to have put these out for us, and all the proceeds are going to go to Faith House for that. And then also, if you are in the Alexandria area, we have Word of Mouth Cafe on October 7th that is also going to donate 10% of their proceeds to Faith House on that particular day in observance of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And then lastly, we have a big campaign that is starting tomorrow. It's Home for the Holidays. And Home for the Holidays is the campaign where you buy a ticket, you can win a home. This home is worth $450,000, and the money that is received for the ticket sales benefits four different charities, and we are very fortunate to be one of those charities. So we're going to be pushing out a lot of information for Home for the Holidays. So we and the other charities that are, I know, all the charities are suffering right now. But so we're very glad to be recipients of that particular campaign.
That is awesome. And what a crazy month you guys have. I'm glad that we can be the kickoff to this month of madness today, because what a great way to start educating people and making them aware. You know, I've never known anyone who has needed to avail themselves of your services, so I don't really have a handle on how deep the need is. How many women and children do y'all serve in a typical year?
Gosh, well, that would be interesting. I don't have those numbers right now because they've escalated as of this year. But
Sure.
in Louisiana, on any given day, you have 20,000 domestic violence calls that come in. So you can use that as a gauge as to the volume that we get here at the shelter, at our different offices in different parishes. It's constant. It doesn't stop. We are open 24/7. We are an essential business, so we have had to work tirelessly through the pandemic, and glad to be here. This is our work with a very wonderful group of women. A lot of these women have been through domestic violence situations themselves. So when you, unfortunately, if you have to come through these doors, rest in the fact that you will be taken care of. And these advocates are wonderful at what they do. And literally with the COVID thing had to pivot on how that they uh, advocate overnight with the COVID thing. So there's been a lot of reconstruction, I guess you could say, within COVID that we've had to do here, but we have taken it in stride and getting it done.
That's awesome. Now, you don't divulge the location of your shelter, right? Because there are a lot
Correct.
of women who need to be protected and basically hide from their
Right.
domestic partner or their domestic abusing partner. So, how do people make donations to you if they want to give physical things, or do y'all not take physical things? How does that work?
We do take physical things, but because of COVID, we've been very careful lately. Also, on our volunteer end, normally we have a lot of volunteers. In fact, I was a volunteer here in my early 20s, which that's kind of what started my whole passion for Faith House. But we've had to kind of, because of COVID, kind of curb that right now. What we need predominantly is monetary donations for operational expenses, and they can
Cash
do
money,
that.
y'all. She needs cash money. So give, I'm just going to put in the plug real quick because Nicole's going to be too nice. I've known her for a long time. She's super sweet. I will not be. I'm going to be direct. So go to their pages on Mighty Cause and give money because that's the only way this shelter can continue to survive. She's having less events, less donations, more pressure, more need. You see the imbalance we have right here? I need y'all to fill that gap. So y'all start digging in and giving. Sorry, Nicole, please continue.
Thank you for thank you for doing that
Sure.
for me. But just to give you a couple of stats, here in Louisiana, we have basically 1/3 of the women in Louisiana who have encountered some sort of domestic violence situation. That is a hard pill to swallow for Louisiana. And if you can imagine that number, imagine how many people are not talking about these situations that they're in. A lot of them just are scared to report it, talk about it, think about it. Some are in denial, but to admit that you're in that type of situation is when the healing actually begins. But we deal predominantly with a lot of trauma with the children. It's navigating the waters when they walk through the door, when they make the call to relieve some of that trauma and help them make sense of everything. Also, I said 1/3 of women, 28% of men have been in a domestic violence situation as well. So no one is exempt. It can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what kind of background you have. It's not a stranger to any level.
Right. I mean, you're talking about 1 in 3 women. I have 3 daughters. And so I think, we have to be open to the fact that this could happen to anybody. And so we've got to make sure we're raising our kids to process things the right way and handle themselves the right way, to be loving and comforting to others who need it, and not use that as their outlet or their tool, but to also be aware of the signs and the symptoms. So if you think you have a friend or family member that's going through something like this, Nicole, what do you do? Where do you turn to help them? Maybe they're not ready to realize it themselves.
Right. Well, let me start with, if you think that you're going through a domestic violence situation, make the call. Come to the realization that you are in this. Everyone's situation is different. Domestic violence has many different faces. It can be physical abuse. It can be emotional abuse. It can be financial abuse. It can be sexual abuse. A lot of women that I've spoken to with a straight face can tell you that they were physically abused. And yeah, he broke 3 ribs. But when you talk about the emotional abuse aspect, that's the scars that don't heal. That stays with women. And I have had more and more women comment on the fact of emotional abuse. doesn't it doesn't heal so quickly. Physical wounds heal. The emotional ones stay and replay in the head over and over again. So make the call. You are not alone. You are not alone. There are many women, many men, and children that are suffering with this. Make the call, and we are here to help. We're standing by 24/7. If you know someone, you have a friend, relative that you think may be going through this situation, be there for them. Talk to them. Open up the line of communication. Do not judge. Don't. And one of the worst things is asking them why they stay, because everybody has to be ready in their own time. Everyone's situation is unique. So be patient with them and listen to them and encourage them to make the call and get help. We're here. As soon as they make the call, we are here. All they have to do is reach out.
Right.
Also, safety planning. Safety planning is a big deal. If you're going through that type of situation, you make a plan. A lot of women just aren't ready. A lot of women are restrained financially but by their abuser, and it's hard for them to do that. But we're here with the resources that you need to help you get on your feet.
So I appreciate, you identify the signs, you make the call, you get the help, and then talk to me about some of the success stories. How have women been able to, and men, I understand, turn their lives around after you've been able to step up and help them?
The wonderful and beautiful thing is that there is life after domestic violence. A lot of women get so caught up in the mentality and the abuse, and it's not your fault. It's the abuser that falls on the fault of the abuser. But we as humans like to replay this stuff in our minds all the time, and living in the past doesn't necessarily benefit anyone. If you can navigate those waters safely to get to a safe place and start living a life that's beautiful, and your children, the children, do it for the children are the youngest, and they are impressioned from a very young age by witnessing this stuff. But there's multiple success stories, and I like to brag on the voices of Acadiana women because they share those stories. They share their stories of abuse, but they also share their stories of life after abuse. And I tend to share a lot of those stories on our Facebook page because there's so many women who can identify with that. But it's our job to get them on their feet and pointed in the right direction.
Well, it sounds like y'all have done that. And it sounds like you've given a lot of women and families their lives back by providing them the safety and security and resources they need to recover. And so I know how important and expensive those resources can be. So again, I implore you, if you're listening, please go to their Mighty Cause page, link in the comments, and give, because this is the way that we are going to be able to help them help others. And Faith House obviously needs our help right now. So when I think about all the events y'all have planned for the year and all the fundraising you were going to do through those events, and all of that obviously got put on big hold, how much are you going to be able to rebound, do you think, in October? And are there going to be a loss of services? Are you okay to continue until we can all start gathering again today? I mean, how's it going to work?
We don't know exactly. We're hoping that by putting the word out there, it being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and putting as much out there, but also being very honest in this fundraising effort, which will last all the way through the end of October, of why we need it. It's operational expenses. It costs money to run this facility. It costs money to run our offices in outer lying areas. It costs money to run the Justice Center. And we hope that we are going to get some significant donations. The community has always helped us. They've always come through for us, and I hope that they see the need, the desperate need that we have right now of being so overloaded and not having the donations come in, especially because of the down economy, people getting laid off. But it's job number one right now to get some funds.
Yeah, no, and I think that's so crucial and so vital. We need these services obviously this year more than ever. And so it's that perfect storm, money down, need up. So I need everybody to help fill that gap. So, Nicole, when you think back on your experience and the women that you've been able to meet through your role there, what do you think is that common thread? I mean, do you see hope? Do you see a future? Do you see them looking towards a brighter tomorrow?
Hope. We love the word hope here. We try to instill that in everyone who walks through the door, because there is another way to live. You don't have to live this way. All you have to do is reach out, and hope is waiting. It's on the other side of that phone call, and we can help. We're here 24/7 to help navigate through those rough waters. It's not fun to go through, and the healing takes time. It really does. especially the emotional healing from it, and the children. We have kids here at the shelter who are doing virtual learning as well. It's a place where, if I'm sitting here at my desk, there's a courtyard outside, and I can hear the kids playing, and it makes me smile a lot because they are not in a situation. They're laughing and playing and not having to worry about an abusive situation going on. So that brings it makes me smile from the inside. It's a wonderful feeling.
Right, which I think is so important, because you're right. Hope is what defines it all. I mean, that is ultimately the most important thing, is to make sure that these families have the hope that things are going to get better and they can work towards that. That's the only way you can recover from being a victim.
Right.
So I know that you said the material objects y'all have had to be very selective with because of COVID, but I do see all the time on Facebook people saying, I want to give this to a women's shelter. I want to help these women out. So if somebody really does have something that's valuable, that's necessary, that would be helpful, where and how can they donate?
What I would suggest is sending a message through our Facebook page, and then I can route them to who they need to speak to, Rebecca here at the shelter, or they can call the shelter here. Rebecca can help them. We don't accept donations for everything. There's certain things that we do need, but like I said, we're being very selective right now. And they can send a message through Facebook, and I can route them to Rebecca, and they can conversate, and she can let them know. But like I said, the primary name of the game right now is monetary donation.
Cold hard cash, absolutely. What about volunteers? Do y'all take volunteers? Do you train them? Can they work the phone banks or work directly with people? How does that happen?
Well, volunteers, we do not have any volunteers right now because of COVID.
Sure.
We have to be very careful. All of us right now are taking extra precautions, to make sure that our temperatures are on point. No one's feeling bad, because we have a whole shelter of people that we need to consider, and we certainly don't want that spreading. So right now our volunteers are on hold, but if you go and you like our Facebook page, once we get the clearance for volunteers to come back, we will make a post about that, and that it's time that we get volunteers back in. Right now, we're just being very careful because of COVID, and that's a very fluid situation that's changing day by day.
Absolutely. Have y'all had an outbreak? Have you had any issues with people being sick in the shelter?
We've been very fortunate. No.
Good thing.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because I found that Boys and Girls Club was able to avoid, y'all were able to avoid, some of the other shelters, like the homeless shelter with Catholic Charities, was able to avoid. So we have found some pockets where people were able to follow protocols and do all the right things and keep their people safe and healthy. And I think that's such an important lesson to all of us, that if we do follow those steps, we can keep everybody healthy, which I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been doing a lot of sanitizing, keeping the place clean, temperature checks twice a day. If you feel bad, don't come in. Things like that. All these things kind of go hand in hand to help us keep the shelter safe.
Right.
And our primary job is to keep everyone that's here, of course, safe from their abuser, but also safe from any possible inflicted sickness or.
Right. No, I think that's awesome. Nicole, thank you so much for your time, and thank you and all of the team at Faith House for all the work that y'all do. Obviously, such a hugely vital service you provide to our community that is going to be more in demand this year than ever before. So thank you, and thank everyone that's watching. If you have the ability to donate, please do. The Mighty Cause link is in the comments. So now is the time to dig deep and help support. As you know, we're going to midnight. We've got podcast after podcast today. Up next is going to be United Way of Acadiana, and that'll be at 2:00. And so thank you all for tuning in. And Nicole, thank you for being here.
I'd like to give the crisis line out one more time, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Our crisis line number is 411-1333. You can find us on Facebook under Faith House. Also, faithhouseacadiana.com is our website. And thank you, Jackie, for having us. We're so grateful to be here today.
Absolutely. And thank you for being here. And all of that information is in the comments. And so if anybody needs any of those resources, go right there. And listen, if you think you are in a domestic violence situation, please reach out and get help. There are teams of people who are trained for this. They know exactly how to help you, and they're standing by and waiting for you. So don't put it off. Don't let it get worse. The holidays are going to exacerbate it even more, just coming out of the pandemic. So please make sure you seek help if you need it.
You're not alone.
Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you.
To do.